hearty welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom with your hospitable hosts, Brandon and Amanda Neely. This is the only podcast for strategies to grow your wealth simply and sustainably, like Grandma used to. Without further ado, here are your hosts.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, where we help you build wealth Grandma would be proud of.
And I'm Brandon, and today we're going to kick off a series about fire. We'll warn you, there's a lot of puns lighting the way for this series. But first, we need to define fire. Now, we're not talking about fire with a match and all of that. We're talking about a movement spreading like wildfire around the nation. In this movement, people are attempting to be financially independent and or retire early. Hence, FIRE, F-I-R-E. Financial independence is the F-I, and retire early is the R-E, if you didn't figure that out already.
So with that in mind, that's what the acronym stands for, what does Grandma think about FIRE?
So as I was talking with her, she told me at first she was skeptical, but then she was proud that people in the FIRE movement are taking their lives and their money seriously and not just going with the flow of your typical corporate drone or consumeristic American, like a lot of people are.
Right. So we've defined what FIRE stands for, Financial Independence, Retire Early. We've shared that Grandma is proud of some of the people in the FIRE movement and why they're, and the whole idea of they're taking their money seriously, they're not going with the flow. But at this point, you might be asking yourself, what really is the FIRE movement? You're not actually telling me what it is. So let's do that. The FIRE movement is kind of hard to define because there's so many voices describing their own versions of what FIRE looks like for them. I found it most interesting to return to the book that started the movement and has really continued to inspire the movement. The book's called Your Money or Your Life: 9 Steps to Transforming Your Relationship with Money and Achieving Financial Independence. And the book is written by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez.
And from what I've heard, they just released a 2018 revised edition, so you could check out the new edition as well.
Yeah. And they've also created a helpful book summary on their website. The website's yourmoneyoryourlife.com, and then you can go find the book summary from there. The book is really a 9-step program, and it goes deep into money mindset. For instance, when we talked about FIRE, we only used the FI for financial independence. But in the book, they actually have the FI can stand for financial intelligence, financial integrity, and financial independence. And I really love their definition of financial independence. I'm actually going to read it from that book summary. Here it goes. Financial independence is defined as having an income sufficient for your basic needs and comforts from a source other than paid employment. It's also independence from crippling financial beliefs, from crippling debt, and from a crippling inability to manage modern conveniences, from repairing your car to fixing your central heating. Financial independence is an experience of freedom at a psychological level. You are free of guilt, resentment, envy, frustration, and despair that you have felt about money issues. Financial independence has nothing to do with rich. Financial independence is the experience of having enough and then some. The old notion of financial independence as rich forever is not achievable. Enough is. Enough for you may be different from enough for your neighbor, but it will be a figure that is real for you and within your reach. So that's how they define financial independence. And then the RE, the retire early, is simply the result of financial dependence. You have sources of income other than a job, and that income is sufficient for your basic needs. Therefore, you can leave your job. You can retire early.
I mean, that sounds awesome, really. Financial independence sounds really good, but I have some very important questions I like to ask. For example, how do you know exactly how much to spend from your nest egg to make sure you never run out of money, that you always have financial independence? Even PhDs in economics debate this and have changed the number over time. How much do you actually need?
Right. So many FIRE promoters use the 4% rule. You might have heard of the 4% rule. The 4% rule has been taught in average financial planning for 20 to 30 years. Yet, in 2013, an organization called Morningstar, which is a global investment research and investment management firm headquartered right here in Chicago, where we're at recording this episode.
Love it.
Yeah, so Morningstar published this report in 2013 called Low Bond Yields and Safe Portfolio Withdrawal Rates.
Oh, that sounds like clickbait right there. Sounds like a great title.
Right.
Everybody's reading that one.
Everyone wants to read this report, right? Low bond yields and safe portfolio withdrawal rates. This report was literally written by a few scholars with acronyms like PhD, CFP, and CFA after their names. And they did the research and they came up with some pretty huge conclusions. The bottom line is that we're way off the former averages. You can see our last episode where we talked about the roaring 20 of the stock market and how we're off the averages for the stock market, but they're also talking about that we're off the averages for bonds as well. And if you've listened to the last episode, what I'm about to say won't surprise you. So they're saying we're way off the former averages. And with the new way of the financial world, the 4% rule only has a 50-50 chance of success for a 30-year retirement.
Wait, what'd you say?
A 50-50 chance of success for a 30-year retirement if you're following the 4% rule.
That's a 50% chance a 65-year-old will run out of money before they're 95. That's pretty scary.
Yep, that's what that means.
Or in the case of early retirement, if you want to retire early, a 40-year-old is half likely to run out of money by the time they reach 70. So before they're even at that age of retirement, they might run out of that money right there.
Yeah, depending on how you define. If they're retired early, by the time like normal people would retire, they might have already run out of money.
I mean, I wouldn't get on a plane if I had a 50-50 chance of crashing.
Right. But you would still get on the plane if you had a 99% chance of making it. You know, like we're willing to take some risk.
Some risk, yeah, but not like a 50-50 chance. That's a little too much for me.
Yeah. So the report goes on to say that if you want to increase your success rate, here's what you need to think about. So if you have a 40-60 blend of stocks and bonds, 40% stocks, 60% bonds, you can increase your success rate to 90% for a 30-year retirement if you reduce the amount you take out to just 2.8%.
So then this new rule is really the 2.8% rule rather than the 4% rule. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, possibly. What the report is really saying is that you have two choices. You can live on less, like take the 2.8% instead of 4%, or alternatively, you could save more. And to be exact, they say you need to save 42.9% more.
And there is a third option not mentioned in the report. And this is a little bit morbid, but it is morbid. It is die early. So if you die early, you can take 4% if you plan
to die early. Yeah. That is a good point.
Which again, if you don't have money, oftentimes stress and all of that stuff feeds into dying early. So
yeah, we don't have the stats to back that up, but just
that's for another
episode, I'll do the research on how much stress, financial stress, decreases your mortality.
But there is 3 options.
Yeah. But what I'm guessing from the FIRE people is that they would say something like, try to do number 1 and number 2. You know, try to save more and try to live on less. You definitely don't want to die early.
Yeah, let's not go for that one. And grandma wouldn't want to see you die early either. So grandma would be about living longer.
Yeah, so let's break this down into some actual scenarios. What's the reality for many when they retire, whether they're retiring early or later?
Grandma always said, eat your vegetables. She loved making home-cooked meals with healthy food and from-scratch desserts. Would you create a diet of fast food or cookie-cutter financial products that made you fat and bloated with fees? Or would you like wholesome, time-honored wealth strategies served with balance and trust? Get started with your healthy money planning by downloading Wholesome Wealth Recipes. Your Moolah cookbook is waiting for you at grandmaswealth.com.
So let's say you saved $4 million. That's a pretty good amount of money to be saving, right? $4 million. If you follow the 4% rule, you could have $160,000 in income each year. But you got to take out taxes, so that would be $128,000 or so after taxes. And if you follow the revised 2.8% rule of that $4 million, it would go down to $112,000 in income. Or again, taxes, you got to take out the taxes, $89,000 per year in retirement. That's a $39,000 difference accounting for taxes each year. And that's $4 million going to $89,000.
Yeah, so you have $4 million in your nest egg, but you can only spend $89,000 per year on everything you and your family need. So, and that could be even less if you want to have a cushion for emergencies, or what they call in the book, Your Money or Your Life, a cash or cachet. This cash or cachet, this fund, this cushion is there to finance your service work, to reinvest, to produce an endowment fund, to use to replace high cost items. You can use it to compensate for if there's periods where you have large inflation. You can give it to charity. It's there if you need long-term care or you have high medical costs. That's what that cushion is for. So if you have the $4 million, you might set aside a portion of that as your cushion and then live on 2.8% of the other portion of it. So you might even be living on less than $89,000 per year.
Wow. And you got to think, most people
don't have $4 million.
Don't have $4 million saved. There's not that many people that I know that have that. So let's be conservative and let's say you saved $1 million.
Which is still a lot.
Yeah, still a lot of money. You saved $1 million towards retirement. So then you're down to $28,000 in income, and that's $22,000 after taxes, to have a 90% chance of not running out of money over a 30-year retirement period using that 2.8% rule. Maybe, just maybe, $22,000 works for an 80-year-old who plays chess with their buddies, or whatever an 80-year-old does all day. I'm not that, so watching Jeopardy or something. But if you're a 40-year-old retiring early and have a family of 4, you're below the federal poverty line. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. Maybe once you're old enough, you can start to take Social Security, or maybe you can pick up a part-time job or some other freelance work. Maybe like so many in the FIRE movement, you can start a blog and figure out how to monetize it. But taking those options out of this scenario, you're a millionaire on paper whose annual income is below the federal poverty line. That's a reality of many who pursue FIRE, and they're actually proud that they can live on so little. But in other words, for the rest of us, the average, more like average, normal people, we need to be thinking about creating a considerable nest egg and then living on only a small portion of it, just the growth. You might try 2.8% instead of 4%, but who knows if between now and when you reach financial independence, the PhDs might change their minds again and give you a different number.
I mean, this sounds really stressful, Amanda. Like hearing all of those numbers, it's scary sometimes, which leads me to the next question I have for you. It's maybe, I think, the most important question I'd invite also our listeners to ask themselves. Do I want to be stressing over this for 30 years or maybe even 60 years? Because we're living longer. So the question is, do I want to be stressing over this for 30 years or maybe even longer.
Right. Because also if you're retiring early, it could be a lot longer
Yeah.
too. So
Not to mention you'll live longer, but you're retiring early. So
yeah, a lot of years to potentially have stress from this. Now, from what I can tell, the first founders of the FIRE movement are people who love crunching numbers, playing with spreadsheets. They might get excited when they see their stock account tumble or they have potential major expense that comes along because they have a new problem to solve. They can attempt to reduce their expenses even more or find new ways to bring in money. Then there's also the more environmentalist or more spiritual camp within the FIRE movement who would be happy to live off whatever they could grow themselves. And they enjoy meditation so much that they've mastered the original 9-step program and don't have a worry in the world, regardless of if their income producing resource dips by 50% or more in the next recession.
sounds woo-woo to me.
Well, I'm totally exaggerating here. And chances are, even for those listening to this podcast, you might be somewhat interested in finances and money, but you do not want to lose sleep over it or spend your free time trying to hack your budget or hack your investments. You know, it's something you're willing to listen to a podcast, that kind of thing, but you don't want to stay up late at night thinking about these kind of things. Remember, the original FIRE sacred text, this book, Your Money or Your Life, is all about your money mindset. In their words, what they're trying to help you do is take back the power you have given over to money and become a conscientious, loving, and knowledgeable steward of your life energy. It's not about spending hours a day trying to save money or to concoct clever ways to generate money. It's really about taking back control of your life, having less worry, less stress in your life.
I mean, that sounds amazing to be able to be in that position. And following the FIRE movement, if that's what it does for us, that's what I want. So in episode 10, Eating Twinkies All Day Will Kill You, we talked about making your financial plan as automated as possible. We were talking about more than setting up an auto pay on your bills, though. We're talking about getting peace of mind where you don't have to watch any stock tickers or make any emotional decisions because of the crash or lack of or whatever. Creating a stress-free, worry-free financial life sounds a lot like what financial independence is supposed to be. Let's imagine some ways that could look like.
Yeah, so just imagine you're financially independent and you have this whole team of people that you hired to grow your money for you. And what if you had paid for that team's salary when you were in the first 5 years of your FIRE journey? You never had to pay them another nickel. And that team was growing your money for you, and they had a 100-year track record of returns every single year or growth every single year.
So imagine, what if when the next major recession hits, your money isn't impacted one bit from it? Or what if you happen to contract cancer, you get cancer, and your fund suddenly has more, not less, available to cover your bills for that cancer?
Yeah, that sounds like financial independence. In the original book for Step 9, Joe suggests using bonds as your savings vehicle. He's using a highly conservative approach. In the updated 2018 version, they expand the criteria to include things like a conservative and balanced use of mutual funds, real estate, and other investment vehicles. Now, Grandma had this really cool strategy that half of Americans were using in the 1940s. And Grandma's strategy gives you access to the highest rated bonds, but shifts the risk, because bonds still have risks, shifts the risk to that team that you've hired to grow your money for you. This strategy fits very well with FIRE and safeguards you from most of the worst case scenarios.
But we're out of time for today, and we would love to share more, and we're going to in the next episode for sure. But if you want to talk with us, let's continue the conversation in voice, on the phone. So all you have to do is go to grandmaswealthwisdom.com and click request a meeting. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to chat and see if some of these strategies that we're talking about can serve you and help you.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of this little mini series we're doing about FIRE. There's some really great things to learn from Grandma that the FIRE movement has caught on to. Today, we hope you've gotten a good idea of what the FIRE movement is and at least an inkling of desire to have that FI part. financial intelligence, financial integrity, and financial independence. Even if you feel a huge nest egg is way out of reach, there are ways to make your life less stressful and begin your journey toward financial independence. And Brandon and I would love to help you do just that. All you have to do is schedule a call with one of us at grandmaswealthwisdom.com. There is no cost to this call and there's no obligation either. You just have to go to the website, click request a meeting, and we'll take the time to talk with you.
So, Amanda, thanks for lighting the match with the FIRE movement, the FIRE series that we have. So, in the next episode, though, we're going to be exploring some fire extinguishers that could get in the way of anyone's quest for a sane financial life. Whether you subscribe to the FIRE movement or not, be sure to tune in to our next episode so that way you know what extinguishers are out there and how to overcome them, because we all want financial independence and all that kind of stuff. We want this match lit and we don't want it to go out.
Yep. So until next time, keep building your wealth simply and sustainably for your own future and the future of our grandchildren's generation. The topics presented in this podcast are for general information only and not for the purposes of providing legal, accounting, or investment advice. On such matters, please consult a professional who knows your specific situation.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.